Hold on. Because I'm assuming we're going to talk about what fringe is, how you fringe.
Yeah.
So that's a good section for that.
Yes.
Although it's very easy, but.
So let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Acosta, Ardila, and I'm the Director of Community Relations here for Pineapple. And we have a very special guest here in our office today, and that is Jeremy Williams.
Hi. I'm Jeremy Williams. I'm the editor of Watermark, your LGBTQ newspaper in Central Florida, Tampa Bay, basically everywhere up and down I-4, Sarasota, Space Coast. And we cover news, sports, arts, and specifically today, arts and entertainment in the local area.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Fringe Festival.
Yes.
Local favorite.
33rd, is that right? Yeah, 33rd festival. You know, it's the oldest Fringe Festival in the United States, yeah.
Yeah. I am 1 year older than the Fringe Festival. So.
I'm a little older than the Fringe Festival.
It's okay. I just wanted to brag that I'm still in my 30s.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. But actually, Jeremy, that's not all you do, because you don't just work for Watermark.
That's true. Well, I do for what, but it's tied to Watermark. We also do a weekly podcast, myself and the owner-publisher, Rick Todd, Wine, Wine Not, a queer podcast. It's called that because I drink wine and he does not. So it starts out pretty smooth, but by the end, I'm a little ranty and screamy and red in the face. But, you know, that's what wine does.
See, I think it's cute because it works.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Rick being an alcoholic,
yeah,
because he shares that a lot,
yeah,
you know, it makes sense. If you and I did a podcast, it'd be like, meth, why not?
Yeah. Why not?
And then you just be tweaking out the whole time, and I'd be like, Jeremy, that's okay.
I have to work my way into that podcast.
But, all right, so the reason why we wanted this synergy to happen is because Pineapple Healthcare is a proud sponsor of the Wine, Why Not podcast.
Yes.
And we're also this year a proud sponsor of the Fringe Festival. So since Jeremy took the time to write up a great story about the Fringe Festival and all of the queer shows that are happening, we figure we start by introducing you to what is Fringe, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with, what is the Fringe Festival?
Fringe Festival. Think of it like a film festival, but instead of going and watching different movies from various people across the world, you're watching live theater. So it's completely 100% uncensored. You're going to see some things on the stage that you may not see at other theaters. There's adult themes. There's some cursing, some bad words, some nudity. You might see some full frontal nudity. There's just anything and everything, and it just creates such a unique environment for creativity to flourish. So the shows run anywhere from 60 to 75 minutes. And it runs for 14 days at the end of May.
It does, and I'm really excited. So to honor Fringe, and since it is the oldest Fringe in America, let's talk a little bit about your first experience with Fringe. So what was your first experience
I love
Fringe?
sharing my first, my most vivid first memory of Fringe was probably about 10 years ago. And it was a show, the name of the show escapes me right now, and I wish I could remember it. But along with shows taking place in theaters, one of the interesting things about Fringe is they have venues, BYOVs, bring your own venues, at various theaters across the city, but also weird locations throughout the Orlando Shakes and Lake Ivanhoe Park. Not Lake Ivanhoe. Sorry. Lock Haven.
Lock Haven.
Lock Haven Park. And this particular one took place in the men's room at Orlando Shakes, the bathroom. And each viewing, I think you could only have like 12 to 15 people in there, and they gave you a poncho before you went in, which, I mean, if you're going to a Fringe show, you know it's going to be a good show if they're giving you a poncho before you go in. And you would stand around the urinals, and the show took place in front of the stalls, and the stalls were kind of the quote-unquote backstage. And they would go into the stalls, and they'd come out and do scenes, and it was random stuff. Like, there was a guy who was chopping up cucumbers and then chewing them in his mouth and spitting them out. And this guy, one of the things, Rick and I went and saw that show, and one of the things that to this day we still quote from the show, and I like saying this out of context, get in the sleeping bag, Michael. Which he did. Michael got in the sleeping bag. But it was the weirdest, most interesting show I have ever seen. And it was the first time I had gone to Fringe, had no idea what to expect. And things like that happen at Fringe all the time. So. Yeah.
And that really is the magic of Fringe, is the embracing of the weirdness.
Yes.
You know, they're just not afraid to show you something you haven't seen before. And I will say something that I enjoy about your podcast is the rapport that you and Rick have, because you've known each other for so long that it really shows up on, like, you have this chemistry of, like, an old married couple that just has their own inside jokes, and then it's like, you get to see them out on...
Yes,
on
we have known each other many years, many years.
All right, so I'll tell you my first memory of Fringe. So I was in high school. I was 16 at the time, and, you know, we just read theater festival, so my friend's mom took us all to the Fringe. She wasn't aware that some shows could have nudity or could be 18 plus, so she bought us all tickets to Dancing with the Porn Stars, thinking it was going to be some innocent, like, farce where, you know, they make fun of porn stars, but not really. Anyway, what we got was full frontal nudity, like just full-on dick.
Actual porn stars?
No, not actual porn stars.
Okay.
They were burlesque dancers, but still, their penis was in full, like, within the first 10, no, not even 10 minutes, within the first 5 minutes, it was like penis.
Yeah.
And she was, you know, this Catholic woman, very nice. She's shocked. My friend, who is a girl, is shocked. They're all, like, covering their eyes, like, oh. And I'm just sitting here, like...
You've got your binoculars out. You're like, what?
I was like, this is my... Like, I found my people. And ever since then, I was like, I know I love the Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
You know? It's like...
Yeah, my very first... this will come as a shock to no one, but Michael Wansley, who is a well-known theater fella here in Central Florida, a lot of his shows have full frontal nudity. And the first Wansley show I ever saw was that same year. And it was... forget the name of the show, but it was based off of Agnes of God, the movie from the 80s, I think. And it opens with a very attractive, well-endowed man, completely naked, wearing, I think, just angel wings, just comes and stands in the middle of the stage for like 2 minutes and then leaves. And I was like, Fringe.
I feel so cheated because I saw one of his shows last year, and it was just a one-man show. So...
Oh, was that the one he's in?
That was the one he did about ecstasy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was really good. But now that I know there could have been full frontal nudity, I'm like...
Well, I mean, that's excellent feedback to give Wansley that you want him to be full frontal nude in his next show.
All right. So now that we've talked about full frontal nudity,
yes,
let's get to the core of what makes the Fringe great, right? So the Fringe actually makes it so that when you buy tickets to the Fringe, all of the proceeds go back to the artists, which is really important because you got to remember some of them travel around the country doing Fringe festivals, and this is their livelihood.
Yeah.
So when you're buying a ticket to the Fringe or to a show at the Fringe, you're really supporting the artists directly. But that means that we also have to support the Fringe. So how do we do that?
Buttons, come get your buttons. So there's two things that are very important if you want to see a Fringe show that you got to get. The first one is a ticket to the show. I mean, that makes sense. And then the other is a Fringe button. And you can get that either from the box office. There's various tables throughout the festival. And probably at all the other, the BYOVs will have the ability to buy a button. But you get a button. It's usually got some fun designs on it from this year's theme, which you can see in that issue of Watermark as well as the program. Get Fringe is their theme, so that's a fun design in there, and a lot of the buttons have to do with that. And so you get your button, you get your ticket, and you go see as many shows as you can.
All right, that's great. I used to think that I was going to collect Fringe buttons, but every year I lose it at least like once or twice.
Same.
Yeah.
Like the first 2 years, I had the first two buttons. I was like, I'm going to have one for every year, and I cannot tell you where my Fringe buttons have ended up. I've probably given them away.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the next thing, right? So Fringe Festival is also, it's not a queer event. However, it sure does support queer artists.
It does. There are things in, specifically in Central Florida, that are not quote-unquote LGBTQ+. But they're queer enough. Fringe Festival falls into that. It's queer enough. I mean, there's a lot of things in Orlando. City of Orlando government I mean, it's queer enough. There's only one official LGBTQ person on city council, but they're all pretty queer. So just Orlando just has a very queer vibe in everything it does. And that Fringe is absolutely that. And that's within our coverage, because there's over 160 shows. I don't know there's a lot of shows. And there's, I mean, well over 30 plus shows that are specifically LGBTQ themed. So it's queer enough if it's not queer outright.
It is queer enough. And I remember last year, I didn't specifically set out to watch queer shows, but every show I watched had a queer component.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Even if it isn't LGBTQ themed, there's usually some sort of queer component to it. It's starring a queer actor or actress. It's directed by a queer person. There's lots of queers in the audience.
One of my favorites that I watched last year was actually, it was called A Hot Kakamu Island.
Oh my God.
Did you watch
Do you
it?
know that was put on by high school kids?
It was.
I loved that show. Me and Rick went and saw that.
It was so ridiculously funny. And also, they were young, young actors. And it was just, they were so flawlessly funny, and they could jump in and out of the different characters. It was like a fun acting class that was taking place in front of you.
Yeah.
And it also had queer components, even though it wasn't necessarily queer.
Yeah. And it definitely that's one of the other interesting things about Fringe is, yes, you're gonna go and you can see full frontal nudity and you can see violence and adult themes, but you can also see shows put on by high school kids just having fun and just telling fun, outgoing, age-appropriate stories for everyone.
Exactly. So it can be a family affair.
Yes.
You just have to find the family-friendly stuff.
And if you're able to pick up a copy of the program, either beforehand or they'll be available at the Fringe Festival, there's a section in there for Kids Fringe. So there is a portion of it that's specifically geared towards kids.
I actually have volunteered at Kids Fringe before. It is so much fun. You get to do activities with the children. It actually doesn't take place in the main complex. It takes place across the street where the parking is for the Orlando Science Center.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really interesting, and the kids get to learn a love of theater. All right, so one thing we were saying is that it is queer-friendly.
Yes.
Very queer-friendly. So you actually wrote a really great article in this newest issue of Watermark. And it actually takes us through all of the queer shows.
Yes.
So I wanted to pick your brain about a couple of them. But I also know that I don't expect you to know all of them in memory. So
well, that's why we have our handy-dandy guides here.
Yes.
I will say, as of recording this, they haven't had the media previews yet, so I haven't seen any of the shows. However, writing about them, because we not only did Watermark put this together, but working with Orlando Fringe, we actually created the official Fringe program. So for the last 2 months, I have been knee-deep in Fringe. So I feel like I've already seen all the shows, and they're all fantastic. But there are a couple that kind of stand out. So what piques your interest?
The one that piques my interest the most is actually on page, I know I saw it because
25. Is that the Dungeons and Dragons one?
Yes, the Dungeons and Drag Queens.
Yeah, this is the second edition. So last year they had the first iteration, and you went and saw that. I actually didn't get a chance to see that show. Rick went out and saw it, and he said it was phenomenal.
Yeah. So as a nerd who has actively played Dungeons and Dragons from time, I've dabbled in it. I'm not an expert, but I understood enough of the Dungeons and Dragons jokes to where when you just add drag queens to it, it was hilarious, and they did a really good job. It felt like a live action role play taking place in front of you. The singing was good. The queens were all stunning, and the story was very queer and very fun. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that we last year in Watermark we talked about is kind of that intersection of the queer community and the nerd community, and the similarities between the two. And there's just so many people in the queer community who are into nerd culture, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons or comic books or Star Wars. So yeah, that is right up any queer nerd's alley.
It is.
But speaking of queer nerds, and one of the other things that one of my favorite things with Fringe shows is the parody shows. People do parodies, and I'm a huge fan of The Mandalorian. And there is a Mandalorian parody, and it is called
Yes, I
It's in
saw
here as well because I'm intrigued to see what the queer angle of this one is.
The Mandalorian.
Yes. So it is a parody of The Mandalorian and a bunch of Star Wars lore. So that should be a really good show as well that will have a queer angle.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, I remember growing up as a little nerd, I always felt like my only visual representation of like the gay culture was like queer as folk. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna have to be
Speaking
some
of full frontal nudity.
So I was like, I'm gonna have to be some hot, super cool like jock to fit into the queer culture. And then I love how we've in recent years have embraced the nerd side of it because a lot of us are nerds. We were nerds in high school. We're nerds now. Like,
Yeah.
this is our time. I love it.
Another one to keep out, if you like history, or specifically local history, last year, or was it 2 years ago? Might have been 2 years ago, the Blacklist Babes, which is a burlesque group, did A City Beautiful, which was a look back at the history of Orlando and where it came from. And they have a sequel coming back, A City Beautiful Story, Tragedy at Hotel San Juan. Which, if you're into local history within Central Florida or burlesque or both, that's definitely one you want to check out.
And I love that because I love it when burlesque shows go one step further than just being burlesque.
Yeah.
Like they actually have an
Yeah.
educational component.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like a nice burlesque, but when you add like a narrative story to it, it just ups the level that much more.
It definitely does. It elevates it completely. I will say there's another one that's also burlesque that I find interesting, and it's called It's Alive, a Muster burlesque comedy.
Yes, that based on the ad or the information on here, it looks like it might have a little bit of a vampire-y aspect to it. And just above the fangs, yep, it says nudity. So there'll be nudity in that one.
I will. Okay, so let's pick something without nudity. That's
Nudity.
More, yeah.
Oh, okay. There's I'm gonna go back. Do you have one that you want to talk about?
I do because I always wanted to like either marry a country boy or be a country boy because I love Dolly Parton and I love country music.
I was just gonna say that.
Yes, and so we have WWDD, What Would Dolly Do? A Dolly Parton tribute cabaret. So
Yes.
for all of you that love Dolly Parton, I mean, she's amazing.
She is, and that actually stars Tora Hyman, who's a local drag queen,
Yes.
whom I'm assuming will be the double D in the show.
And if you're interested in any of these shows or you want to know more about what's going to be queer at Fringe, absolutely pick up the newest. This is still the newest issue.
Yeah, it's still on newsstands for now, but you can always go to watermarkonline.com and click on the digital issues tab at the top of the website, and it'll take you to this issue and all of our back issues as well as the official program. If you're not able to pick up a hard copy before then.
Oh, that's already on the website.
That's on the website,
awesome.
yeah.
Y para los que hablan español, Watermark en español tiene este mismo artículo traducido al español para que puedan saber todo lo que va a ser queer en Fringe.
See?
So love it. All right. Well, that's our time. Thank you again for joining us. Pineapple Healthcare is proud to support the arts, and we are proud to support the Fringe Festival. We're also proud to support queer podcasts, so totally proud to support Why Not? And Jeremy, would you like to leave us with some advice for Fringe?
Yes, wear comfortable shoes because while you are sitting and watching the shows, you're going to be walking between about a dozen or 24 different theaters, so wear good shoes and just come with an open mind. And if you're so inclined or you're someone who drinks, have a few cocktails. If not, my big thing is hit up, I'm pretty sure they'll be out there. They're out there every year. Stop by the food truck and get you some cheese curds. Fried cheese curds. They're fantastic.
They also have Jimmy Bears that goes every year.
Oh,
Jimmy
yeah.
Bears barbecue. So they're not paying us to say
So
this,
yeah,
but
no,
they're
these are
delicious.
not sponsored ads, but bring a little extra money with you and hit up the food trucks because they got some great food out there as well.
Yeah, and Pineapple Healthcare is going to be at the lawn on the 18th, 19th, 25th, and 26th, and we're going to be doing an art installation with our very own Kim Murphy. So if you would like to go in and do some art of your own, we will have all the supplies. It's completely free, and it's a great activation that we're doing for the community. And I also want to remind you, my one tip for Fringe is do not be late to the shows.
Oh yeah, they will not let you in if you are late. That is their one rule they are a stickler with.
Yeah, so if you're late to the show, you're not getting in.
Now, I do want to mention, when you were talking about being out there, on the final day, Watermark for the past few years have done what we call the Watermark Splash Awards, or the Splashies, which is recognizing the best of LGBTQ shows. So after you see a bunch of the shows, go to watermarkonline.com and vote in the Splashies who you thought, what you thought was the best LGBTQ show, best performer, best director. There's about 5 or 6 categories for you to vote in, and we'll award them on Memorial Day when they have the closing ceremonies.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Make sure you vote for the Splashies. We're going to be posting all of the social media for Pineapple Healthcare, all of the social media for Watermark, the social media for Wine, Why Not podcast. And yeah.
Yeah, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Threads. I don't know. That's a new one. I don't know how it works, but we're there. And we're on YouTube. So like, subscribe, right here, probably about right here. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. And thank you for joining us today. Make sure you share this video with anyone that wants to know more about Fringe or wants to be prepared for the Fringe.
Yes.
And again, come join us this year at Fringe. All right. And we're very happy to have you here with us again.
Well, thank you for having me.
Acosta from Pineapple Healthcare. This has been Jeremy Williams, and we're signing off. Bye.
Bye.